Hey friends, welcome to my channel Ascending Thoughts. Hope you all are doing well. Pakistanis have been mocking Indians online for their so-called importance in ending Iran-US war and celebrating it as if IMF wrote off all their loans. India has repeatedly made it clear that we never want to interfere in other people's war and that our strategic goal is neutrality. Then I saw a US Intel report flagging Pakistan, especially Asim Munir, their chief of army staff, as perfidious and unreliable, all in quotations. So I went into the Intel report in depth and decided to analyze the whole thing as well as Trump's pro-Pakistan tilt after the Operation Sindoor. So let's begin. Recent reports citing American intelligence assets have cast a shadow over Pakistan's current role in sensitive geopolitical diplomacy. At the center of this scrutiny is Asim Munir, Pakistan's army chief, whom we Indians refer to as Bunker Munir, viewed by the US intelligence community as liability and a red flag rather than a reliable partner. According to media reports in the US, concerns have been raised within Washington over Munir's long-standing ties with the Iranian military leadership, particularly elements linked to the powerful IRGC or Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. These concerns are especially significant given Pakistan's emerging role as quiet intermediary on ongoing US-Iran back-channel communications. Pakistan has recently positioned itself as a bridge between US and Iran. In this context, Munir's involvement as a facilitator has been strategically useful, particularly for informal or indirect negotiations for US. However, US intelligence analysts warns that this dual role, mediator on one hand and a figure with links to IRGC on the other, could create serious conflict of interest, especially for US. The fear in Washington is straightforward. If Munir maintains deep ties with Tehran's security apparatus, any sensitive information shared through the diplomatic channels by the US could be compromised and leaked to Iran. This raises the possibility that Pakistan's mediation may not be entirely neutral but influenced heavily by competing loyalties and strategic calculations. The intelligence quotient versus Trump's trust becomes even more complex when viewed through the lens of political leadership. Reports suggest that Donald Trump has at times expressed a degree of personal confidence in Munir, even informally referring to him in positive terms. Yet this apparent trust sharply contrasts with warnings from US intelligence community. Analysts have reportedly flagged Munir as a red flag, emphasizing that personal diplomacy should not override institutional assessments. This divergence highlights a recurring tension in US foreign policy: the gap between leader-to-leader rapport and the often more cautious, data-driven conclusions of intelligences. Then the other problem is Pakistan's historical track record. Much of this US intelligence skepticism surrounding Pakistan's current role stems from its historical behavior. For decades, Islamabad has been playing a double game, publicly aligning with US objectives while simultaneously backstabbing US, like in the case of Afghanistan, where Pakistan Army took aid from US while kept its ties with groups like Taliban. During US-led war in Afghanistan, Pakistan received huge amount of aid, even as its security establishment were supporting insurgent networks that directly caused the loss of American lives. This legacy of duplicity continues to shape perceptions in Washington. Intel analysts argue that Pakistan has repeatedly leveraged its geographical importance while pursuing its own parallel agenda, often at odds with US and global interests. Security experts have echoed these concerns. Bill Roggio of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies has been particularly vocal, warning that US should approach Pakistan with caution. Roggio described Pakistan as a historically unreliable ally, especially in conflict zones like Afghanistan. He also pointed to Munir's connections with IRGC as a huge red flag, suggesting that such ties will undermine US strategic goals in the region. From this perspective, Pakistan's role as mediator is not seen as a goodwill gesture but rather rather a calculated move to maintain relevance and leverage in global geopolitics, especially the drubbing they received from India during Op Sindoor. The US now faces a difficult balancing act. On one hand, Pakistan's geographic positions make it potentially useful intermediary. On the other hand, the very same factors combined with its historical track record make it a risky partner. This dilemma is not new, but it is becoming more pronounced as tensions in the Middle East evolve and back-channel diplomacy gains importance. And the intelligence warnings, if they turn out to be true, as they usually have, relying too heavily on Pakistan and by extension Munir could expose US strategy to unintended vulnerabilities. Now let's have a look at Trump's sudden Pakistan tilt, especially after Operation Sindoor. From my point of view, while India was dealing with terror fallout and Operation Sindoor, reports of Donald Trump Jr., Trump's son, exploring or backing investment opportunities, especially in crypto, in Pakistan send a very different signal to India, especially when placed against the broader posture of Donald Trump. The optics from US couldn't have been worse. Modi rightly refused to nominate Trump for Nobel Peace Prize, as the Indian media had reported those days. For all these imaginary wars he has supposedly stopped. Modi also refused to pick calls from Trump, that too 4 times according to German newspapers. It must have grated on Trump's gigantic ego when India refused ceasefire after US told us to do so, and instead India told Rubio to ask Pakistan call directly if they want a ceasefire. It also confirmed India's stance of no third party involvement in our national security issues or regional issues. Trump and CIA's historic behavior creates the impression that even during moments when India is focused on security, parallel US financial or strategic engagement with Pakistan will continue. So the real issue isn't whether Trump is pro-Pakistan. The real issue is this: is the US once again prioritizing short-term tactical gains over long-term strategic consistency, especially having India as a friend? Because if that is the case, then what we are seeing post-Op Sindoor is not surprising at all. It is familiar, and this has led to Modi looking elsewhere and Trump walking straight into Pakistani double game. And Asim Munir is legendary in buttering up Trump, unlike Modi, who is a statesman with global stature. Now, the bigger picture is that at its core, the issue reflects a broader reality of international relations. Alliances are rarely absolute. Countries often pursue overlapping and sometimes conflicting interests. That is, for example, India's strategic alliance with Israel and Russia, while Russia and Israel is at odds most of the time. Pakistan's engagement with both Washington and Tehran may be less about loyalty and more about posturing as a country with a global stature. For the US, the challenge lies in distinguish between pragmatic cooperation and long-term potential risk. So, what do you guys think? Leave your opinions in the comment section. Like, subscribe and share my channel. I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Take care and bye.